Welcome. Tonight we are discussing episode 715, Written in My Own Heart's Blood, which was written by Danielle Barrow and directed by Joss Agnew. Um, Danielle joined Outlander in season 5. She wrote one episode, she wrote actually the Famous Last Words, the really creative one, 508, with the black and white with Roger was hanged, and she did another one in season 6, and then she did the opener for season 7. Joss, the director, and I think that's how you say his name, did directed the last 2 episodes of season 7A. I'm Courtney Williams. I produce Outlander behind the scenes. I'm a longtime book fan, longtime show fan. Love that we are all 4 here tonight to discuss this amazing episode. I'm drinking boring water again. I'm not even going to pick it up. I was going to make a really cool drink and I ran out of time. That happens to me all the time. Obviously, I ran out of time to dry my hair too. So, this episode for me dethroned 712 as the best episode of the season. Like, wow, it blew me away. It didn't even feel like I was watching a show. It felt like I was having an experience. That's what it was like for me. That and it was a great experience. And every time I watched it, I became emotional. When I would go back to be like, let me find my favorite scenes or my least favorite scenes, again, I would be crying along, or I just get sucked right back in. I absolutely loved it. I don't know how to rate it because I already sort of am ruining Carmen's ratings. So I'm just gonna say, because I gave 712 a 5, I'm gonna switch over. That's like an A. This is an A plus for me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carmen Schmidt, and I write the Outlander Anatomy blog. I enjoy both the books and the TV series. And my drink tonight is eggnog again, which I've had the last several times, but I'm still in a little bit of a celebratory mood, so it works, with a shot of rum. I would give this, without hesitation, this episode 2 thumbs up or 5 stars. It was just fabulous. I just love this episode. I've watched it 4 times, and every time I also find myself tearing up when I think I know what's coming and everything, and there I am.
Hello. My name is Catherine Harmon Toomer, or Kathy Harmon on X, I guess you call it. I have arrived at BTS. I forgot to mention before by way of Blacklanders, which I didn't have time to write for this season, but hopefully we'll again next season. And before I continue, I just want to say shout out to Happy Founders Day to my sorority sisters. Today is our Founders Day, 112 years. Delta
Wow.
Sigma Theta, for anyone who doesn't recognize
Happy
the date.
birthday.
Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated Founders Day, 112 years today. So I'm wearing my hat and my elephant bracelet in commemoration. I felt and I'm drinking my elderberry and echinacea tea. I've been on flights and I'm double masked, still worried that I might have caught something. So I'm just making sure I'm, boosting my immune system. This episode was fantastic. One of the few, I find it difficult sometimes to watch episodes twice or more than twice. This one, I found myself wanting to watch it again. And there was just so much. It's just good. It was just good. I mean, it's definitely one of my favorites for a lot of reasons. And we'll talk about those later.
I'm Antoinette, and love the books. I've come to really love the show. And this episode, this mother episode, was, yeah, I want to take it behind the barn and have my way with it. It was so good. It gets a 2 snaps for me. It was that good.
2 snaps in a circle. Oh, good Lord.
It was that good.
We're
Yeah.
having
It-
Internet Outlander
They
babies.
got back to made the show great. Mm. Well, I'm a little past the baby having, so I have my way with it and I have my fun. And I am drinking sangria, and I might have put a little port in it.
Hmm.
You better watch out for gout.
Tasty. What's with you and this goat?
Because we found out last week that port is a risk factor for gout.
Not an occasion.
Yeah. It's yummy. It is yummy.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's kick this mother off. Favorite scenes.
I'll just say that Claire getting shot and the subsequent acting by the whole team, Sam, Kat, Denzel, Lecky, the whole group was just off the charts as far as I was concerned. It was, and especially Sam, but I'll come back to that. So I'll say that's my favorite scene. I was riveted and I was weeping every time on that one. It was well done.
I think it would go down as one of the best scenes since Jamie and Blackjack Randall. I mean, it was one of those type scenes, so I agree.
Yeah.
However, my favorite was the beginning. I liked the fact that they kind of ran through all of the scenes from the beginning, just a reminder of all the different things that have happened, and you just realize just how good Outlander really is when you remember all those things he showed. So yeah, that was my favorite, was the opening.
So I agree with you, Carmen. I look at those as different scenes. But and Catherine, the Claire getting shot scene, the way they filmed that, the way they slowed down and then sped up Jamie's the camera work combined with the acting, combined with the directing, like boom, that scene was amazing. And then Sam's response when he's holding her. Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps just saying that. So that was for me in a 3-way tie for my favorite scene. So I'll mention another one, which is Francis and William. Holy crud. Catherine, you said she's a scene stealer.
Oh yeah.
Man, she just, when she came on that and William and then just her emoting, that kid has chops. I mean, that scene and she is so commanding, and then the two of them together I thought were fantastic. So that was in my 3-way tie for my favorite.
So I've got so many favorite scenes and I can't really rate them. So I'll just say the first one that I wrote down. And that was the first scene with Jamie and Claire when he told her about his mother. And I said, well, damn. We are getting back to what made Outlander great. Jamie and Claire at the core and capturing that special alchemy that you can feel when Sam and Kat are on screen together and they have good material. It was just sublime. And my other favorite scene was when Ian killed the Hessian. Yeah, I love that scene. I love that scene. But for a weird reason, but it was one of my favorite scenes. And then I
What's the
agree with
weird
all of your
reason?
choices.
What's the weird reason that that was one of your favorites?
Because we got to see Ian, the warrior. You know, this episode, everybody came back to their true characters. Because Ian had been sort of a milk toast kind of, yeah. But, you know, it's sort of a watered down version of Ian, because Ian is a fierce warrior, and you could see him trying to tame himself for Rachel's sake. But then that warrior, that man of blood came out. Yeah, I would have regretted it. I love that. I love that.
I love that one too. For that same reason. I thought John Bell was just smashed that scene. And the Haitian guy did a really good job dying. Well, no, I mean, I don't know. I thought he did. We have to ask the docs.
I love the scene with William and Lord John Grey. When they came back to the camp,
Oh,
and William was talking to Lord John Grey, and he says, "Ask him, who am I?"
Mm.
You know, there were some great lines in the scene, and they bounced off each other so very well. The interaction, it was electric. You know, I felt it. So that again was one of my favorite scenes.
so what worked for you, Carm?
Well, Antoinette touched on it, and that is that Jamie and Claire's chemistry is back. I have felt it was less than what stellar this half of the season so far, but boy, it was back in spades for me in this episode. It was just from the very beginning, as they're sitting in the tent together and they have the conversation, which has already been spoken about, so I won't go through that. All the way through, it just zinged for me, and I thought these two people love each other. You know, they'll do anything for each other, and you know, it was just right back to where I want to be in Outlander. So I was very pleased with the performance by both of them in this, and the material that they were given, and the direction too. We have to credit the director for a lot of this, because even though terrific writing, the director doesn't always interpret it in a way, you know, that we might like to see them do. And it was just all around just really a reestablishment of that connection that they share so wonderfully together in the books and throughout many of the episodes in this TV series.
What worked for me was the writing and the cinematography. I just felt like the shots were done really well. The lighting was excellent. And the writing was just, I mean, it just was well done. And the editing, because there wasn't that choppiness that we had seen earlier in the season. This was allowed to flow. And so I liked all of it. That's all that worked for me.
I want to mention the directing also, because it dawned on me that like the director, I mean, the writing is really important, but the director kind of dictates our point of view. And I felt like this guy literally created magic, like pulled everything out of the actors, had the camera people doing their top of their game. You know, some of the choices, for the cinematography, the camera work, uh, just it was so artistic, but not artistic for no reason. It was art. I felt like in this episode, like Antoinette has often said, "Oh, well, here they go. They sacrifice character for drama." They didn't. We got the action, we got the drama, and we got the character, and we got to see it in a way that was believable, and it felt like an experience. And I really think that has to be down to the director. Um, you know, it's the writer, director, just the combination worked. The marriage of all of the elements really worked.
Yeah, I agree. What worked for me was that beginning montage, which showed all of the conflicts and the battles. We went all the way back from Culloden to the War of the Regulation and everything. I thought that was a brilliant way. No, we started with Claire in World War II.
Yeah.
You know, I just
Episode
thought that
one.
was a World War One. Oh, Lord Jesus. World War
No, episode one.
Episode one. Yeah. You know, we went all the way back. And, you know, sometimes I get frustrated with them, you know, with all these bloody flashbacks and whatnot. But this was a brilliant way to set up this war, which could be the war of all wars for Jamie and Claire. Do you know what I mean? So that just knocked me out from the beginning. Claire's voiceover at the beginning worked as well. I'm not a fan of the voiceovers. I haven't been for a minute, but this one, for some reason, it really worked. I don't know if it was what she had to say, but it didn't feel lectury and, you know, like some of them can feel. So that the coming back of Claire's voiceover really worked. And hat tip to the writer, because she pulled so many disparate threads and just created a story that flowed. There was no, well, yeah, there was one thing, but for the most part, she created this wonderful tapestry out of all these disparate threads, and it turned out beautifully. I agree with you, Courtney, that the director, he was great. Because, you know, some of these directors insert themselves into the story, and you can feel them manipulating and getting on their soapbox and trying to create things. And they get in the way of the story. This director did not get in the way of the story. He let the story unfold in an organic way, and it was just wonderful. So that really, really worked for me. At moments I was there like just clapping and saying, "Woo, come on now." Yeah, he threw down. The director threw down. I loved it.
Well, another thing that worked for me, and I think it was Catherine that alluded to it, but it was, or that mentioned it, it was the scene between Lord John and William. Now, in the tent when they've come back, and he said, "Who am I?" Oh no, it was Antoinette, I think. Who am I? William who? William Ellesmere, William Ransom, certainly not Grey, which must have stung Lord John really badly to hear him say that. That would have hurt very, very much to hear him say that. But then I really loved the way Lord John answered him, and he said, "You're my son. You're my son." And he couldn't have said it in a better way, in my opinion. His interpretation of those two lines was just spot on. He was saying to him, you know, I don't care who your biologic dad was. You are my son. I raised you. I am bonded with you. You are mine. And of course, he's going to have to share him with Jamie, but still, you know, I think he did the right thing under the circumstances, because, as was mentioned, he's trying to ground him and bring him back into reality and have him remember who he is, what his responsibilities are, what are his commitments to himself and to others. And I think that this was really just really well done. I really liked the scene a lot. Well acted, well written, well directed.
Great.
It's a trifecta.
Yeah. I mean, like every one you could, it just, it was like just a sumptuous meal almost.
Well,
She likes
Catherine.
shrimp.
I'm going to say what worked for me was that the lighting. a lot of these scenes, majority of these scenes were shot outside, but and not just the lighting. It was we kind of touched on that last time that Metin had said that in the beginning they used candlelight. I really was thinking about that, and electrical light was just not around back then, and a lot of this season has been on stage sets in like the houses and stuff like that. This episode felt more real and gritty, I think, because so much of it was outside. It was cold. You could see the elements interacting with the actors. They had red noses, they had steam coming out of their mouths, they looked cold, the way they were holding their bodies. And the natural light, the way they use the light, like in the first scene with Jamie and Claire in the tent and the sun is coming in on Jamie. It was just, I mean, that close up of them where he's talking about, he likes to see the years touch her. You can see his eyelashes. I mean, it's the light is just this was just such a work of art for me. It was just so many beautiful, like, oh, you see that and it's like, oh, look at that. And to the I feel like this director got the power of Sam Heughan's eyeballs, because there was so much lighting used. I don't know if you guys saw in the church when he's looking this way and the light's coming in here and it's literally illuminating the eyeball while he's emoting. I don't know. And that natural light in through the church. I loved the use of light in this episode.
When I was saying cinematography, that's what I meant. It was like, that's what it was. The other they do with the lighting is they tend to just illuminate their eyes to keep the bottom half in shadow and the upper part in shadow. And then they just kind of have this band of light across their eyes.
The fact that they were able to use so much of the dialogue from the books really, really worked. And I think it helped the characters come back to themselves. And so using a lot of the quotes from the book, the language, the dialogue, word for word sometimes from the book really, really worked, because it made my ears perk up. And I said, oh, yeah. That's one of the reasons why I think everything flowed so much, because they weren't trying to, this is one of the best uses of the source material that I have seen in a while. This is
why is that? Why? Because other episodes use the dialogue and from the books, but it just didn't come across.
Because sometimes I feel when they use the dialogue from the book, sometimes in other episodes, they just insert it. And it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna give the book readers this. Oh yeah, we use that quote. But this felt organic. This didn't feel like if it was inserted as a sop to the book lovers, to just give them something. She managed to use the dialogue from the books in the way that they were supposed to be used, so that it flowed and it felt natural and it didn't feel forced. So I loved all the dialogue from the books that was used because of how they were used, not just because we got to hear words that we were familiar with. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what has happened in the past. We get familiar words, but they don't mean anything because they're just horned in, so I feel as a sop to the book readers. And so that really, really worked. And I've been saying this part of the season. Like, remember I said that Scotland has its own character in the series. I feel like the settings, especially the outdoor settings, the use of the long range shots and the panoramic views, they themselves have become almost like a character in the show, because they enhance the story that's being told. It's not just, oh, that's so pretty. No, it's part of the storytelling, which I found was so brilliant in how the director and the writer collaborated. And of course, the technical people, the lighting people, the makeup. Oh my God, Claire's makeup. Whoever did her makeup for when she was on that table, hats off. Hats off. She looked dead. No, she looked dead, dead, dead. But no, that makeup was brilliant. So
Yeah.
there's so many elements that all came together on the artistic side of things that really, that didn't get in the way. They service the story, you know, because
Yeah.
sometimes you feel like they're just there because, oh, they want to show off, or they want to show their art, but we don't want to see your art because it's a distraction. What we want is for it to become integrated, for it to serve the story. And in this episode, all those elements came together and served the story. So that worked for me on every level.
Yeah, it was like more like an orchestra.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I agree with Antoinette, but I also wanted to add that when I watched this episode, especially the second time, I thought to myself, this writer is a book reader. She's not just picking, a scene here, and then translating it onto the page in some manner so that it can be acted on. She actually has a feel for what this story is about. And the other thing that I wanted to comment on is that one of the reasons why I think the lighting was so fabulous, especially outdoor, is because the light in Scotland is unlike any other place I've ever been in my life. It is unbelievable, the clarity. I've been up to the Orkney where it is even more intense than on the mainland Scotland. And the lighting in Scotland is just fabulous. And so when they can capture that and include it in part of the story, I feel it really adds to the beauty and the intensity of the events that are unfolding in the episode.
Let's move on to least favorite scenes. And Carmen, that will be you again.
All right, Antoinette, don't kill me. But Ian killing the Hessian officer was my least favorite. And I had to choose something because I really didn't have any least favorites. And it wasn't because of Ian and his acting or the Hessian officer and his acting. It was good. But, in the book, he kills an Abenaki warrior. He doesn't kill, and he has good reason to, because they left him for dead. I mean, they really did a bad number on Ian. And I just wasn't sure that him treating his cousin that way would be enough reason for him to sort of betray his vow, soft vow to Rachel. That's really not a firm criticism. Like I say, I had to search.
Carmen.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's not that the reason wasn't a good reason, because I don't think that was the reason. The reason was the implied threat. You'll regret this.
Yes, that's right.
He
did say you will regret that decision.
Yeah.
But people say stuff to other people all the time, and there is nothing that would give Ian, that I could see, that would give Ian reason to believe that man could carry out that threat. Well, so that's really
the
what
last person who threatened him went after his wife, who became his wife.
Yeah, Archibald.
But I mean, he had a.
That's true.
He had a different reason for feeling that way.
They killed all his men. Right before he said it.
What are you talking? What do you
So I'm
mean?
saying that Ian and Lord John just killed all of his men.
Yes.
Exactly.
So when he
So
says
No,
you're
I'm
going to
not
live to
saying
regret
that
it,
I'm not saying that the Hessian might not feel that way toward
Mhm.
him. I am saying that I felt it was not convincing that Ian would want to go kill him because he made that passing remark, you regret it, or whatever he said to that effect. Um, and I don't want to make a
yeah.
big deal out of it. Let's not spend any
Yeah.
more time on it,
No, but
because
I agree with you. I don't think it was because of what he said. I think because the way they filmed it, it looked like immediately after he let him go, he was like, that wasn't very smart. He had this look on his face like, I probably shouldn't have done that.
That's what I saw too. It was more like I didn't go with my gut.
are you
Like
talking about the Hessian officer here?
no,
What he said?
Ian.
I think
Ian
he regretted
would
letting
have.
him go immediately
Oh,
after
yeah,
he did.
yeah, I do
Yeah.
too. I do
I
too.
think Ian was like, this made him really uncomfortable to not kill the guy. He did it for Rachel. And then when the guy said, "You're going to regret that," he just kept thinking about it, and he
Yeah,
thought,
well, there's a
"I have to
witness
follow
alive
through."
of the
Yeah,
whole event, if
right.
he doesn't do anything about it. I can understand that. But I'm just saying, that's all I could find.
Yes.
If you don't like it, it's okay.
My least favorite is the one thing that I have skipped over every single episode since the season started, and that is the song. I cannot tolerate listening to the song. And I know that they throw in some scenes in there and they put in some things that are different each week. I cannot tolerate listening to it. It is just like I skip it every time. It's just it's almost
Agonizing.
it's like, how could they do? And I understand that now they have to leave it in there because Sinead O'Connor, isn't that who sang it? Yeah, because she died since. But it's I never liked her singing before. So but she just mutilates that song. And I can't listen to it. I'm too much of a musician to listen to that.
I will say, the first time I heard that, I felt that same way. I thought it was especially weighty in this episode because of what led into that when she said, war is inevitable, and death is too. And then we hear Sinead O'Connor singing. So it's me. Least favorite scene, same thing. I thought all the scenes were well done. If I had to have a least favorite, and it wasn't even that much of a least favorite, it was Roger and Buck when they're arguing um, in front of the horses, which I really enjoyed watching the horses watch their scene, because they literally were like, Roger would be talking, they'd look at Roger, and then Buck would be talking, and they'd look at Buck, and their little ears would be like, hmm? You know? And so that was pretty distracting. And I didn't mind it, but I had to search again for the least favorite. And the other thing is, I'll say that I think they only had 2 horses cast for this episode because was anybody else confused when Lord John and William went riding off on Roger and Buck's horses? And at first I was like, what?
I
And
thought
what was
that?
Ian going to use?
Well, there was that part, but those horses were in 1739 just a minute ago, and then all of a sudden they're running away in
1778.
They could have at least
Hey,
thrown a wig on one of them.
1778.
But they were so cute watching that scene with Roger and Buck. So I had to dig for a least favorite.
My least favorite was the scene with Roger and Buck at Valley Brook when Buck was talking about what's her face? What's her face? What's the
Morag.
Morag.
Why? Why? No, we didn't need that. How did that help the story? How did that move things forward? And then it confused me because Morag was at the War of the Regulators with somebody who I thought was Buck, but it's not Buck. Where did she meet this man? Didn't she come over on the boat with Roger in season 3? The hell he's talking about he brought her back to Scotland and he took her to North Carolina. What? So
Well, yeah, they've had 3 Bucks, so that's why it's
Okay.
confusing. There's Buck on the boat, and then
there was a buck. There was a
Graham.
buck on. There was no buck on the boat. It was just her and the kid. That
No,
what's his the captain, whatever Bonnet was gonna throw her overboard.
Bonnet.
Didn't they show the husband too?
I don't think so.
Oh,
So because I'm thinking,
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? So,
but then it was Graham was Buck.
But was Graham Buck or was it
Yeah.
her? Did he? What
No,
the
he
hell?
was Buck.
He was Buck. So and then they cast this guy because Graham, can't just keep. He's like whatever age.
I just felt it was just unnecessary. I felt that they had this guy there and they had brought him in and they had to use him. And so they had this long conversation about Bloody Morag, who is dead, who we don't care about.
She's not dead.
She's not
I don't
dead.
care. Well, let me put it. She's dead to me because I don't care about her. I don't care about Morag. I don't care. Why she got with Buck? Nothing about Morag interests me in the slightest. So I want to know why we had to have 5 to 10 minutes talking about Bloody Morag. That was my least favorite. That's why I didn't give it 3 snaps. I only gave it 2.5 snaps because they wasted 5 to 10 minutes on a character that was meaningless. And I still don't understand why they did that.
I wondered about that too. I thought it was well done. His name is Dermot Murtaugh.
No, he's good.
Yeah,
He is
let me,
very good.
but
let
why,
me say, no, let
isn't
me
he a
finish.
dead end? I mean, why?
Exactly.
I have something I would like to add about that.
Yeah,
Okay,
The
go for
reason
it.
why I think he told the story about he wasn't a very good person, and here's why, is because that was the reason why he was willing to go back and tell Bree where Roger was so that she could take the kids and meet him in that time frame in case the letter didn't work. He explains it in the scene. It just went on for quite a while.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just trying to give some airtime to the two of them. I'm not really sure, but it could have been done more.
He could have written him a note.
Could have been abbreviated.
He could have written him a
that
damn
was a
note.
What didn't work for you, Carm?
Well, one of the things was, what was Bree doing alone at Lollybrook after all of that shooting her shotgun and everything? She finds the letter in the desk at Lollybrook. What's she doing alone there in the library, looking at books by,
Right, because those guys haven't been captured or anything.
Right. So that I thought was kind of glaring. She picks up the soul of a rebel by her dad, her adopted father.
Maybe we're supposed to think that the locksmith finally came and she feels safe there now. I don't know.
Maybe.
I wouldn't, but
yeah.
By herself with no gun sitting
was a
there.
bit-
I mean, I would have been walking around with that shotgun in my hand
Exactly.
after that
your
encounter.
pockets full of shells.
Yeah, that's right. So that would be I thought that was a little bit of a flaw.
That's a good
Okay.
one.
What didn't work for me was actually not so much the scene of Bree being in the house by herself, but that whole leave the letter in the desk, in the drawer. Like, what's the likelihood that nobody would ever look in that drawer again for the next 250?
Well, it was a hidden drawer. It only popped open because she slammed the one on the
But he
front of the
knew
desk.
it was a hidden drawer and he put it
Yeah.
in there.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that didn't work for me because it wasn't obvious.
Yeah, you know how the back end opened?
Yeah.
They
I
figured
thought it
that
just got
out and
stuck. I thought the letter got stuck in there. But anyway, okay. So it was a secret drawer.
That's from the book, right, Carmen? Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
how they
there's a
did
Yeah,
it.
I
secret
remember
drawer.
that from the book. And there was a lot of stuff in there that um that worked and didn't work for me. Also was the like what came first, the chicken or the egg? So it's like, this happened, so then that happened, so then Buck got, Dougal and you know and Gaelish
Jealous.
because of Roger, then it could have. So how many times has this been going spinning, through to create? I just like I'm not thinking about it, but
Yeah. We don't care.
sometimes the time traveling events that trigger other events that shouldn't trigger other just blows me away. So I just that doesn't work for me too much.
I don't think they know how to deal with it in short story form because it's a complicated thought. And the way Diana wrote it in the books, it's extremely convoluted and complicated. So it's hard to distill something like that down for a show when you don't have 20 episodes per season, and when you don't have a Game of Thrones budget. And so sometimes a lot of that just get lost in the weeds for me. And I just suspend my disbelief and say, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought they covered that pretty well in this episode, for what it was.
I did too.
I don't care
Yeah.
about
I noticed a few continuity issues in this episode. So William is extremely dirty and beat up. And then they walk into the tack room and he's got a pretty clean uniform on and he's cleaned up. So to me, that just said this is a new day of filming, and they started so that was a little bit of a continuity issue. Same thing, I don't know if you guys noticed, but in the church with Jamie and Claire, when Bixby went to go get Denzel and Rachel, they showed like, a pan of the thing, but the sun was in the same place relatively. It was still coming into those windows. So it was the same day. And Rachel and Denzel were immaculate. And they've just, done the, been treating people from the war all this time. And also Claire was a little bit more cleaned up. Jamie was a little cleaned up. So it just looked like this is a new day of filming. They did this scene and it just didn't quite, the continuity wasn't quite there, is what I noticed. And yeah, the last thing I'll say is just, yeah, Roger still has clean, fluffy hair after all this, time and a clean outfit, and their beards are the same. It just, there was no kind of believability that they've been roughing it for however long it's been now. I think it's been a while.
I don't know. Maybe he was filming something else at the same time that he was filming Outlander, and then he had to leave and go to his other gig because that's the only thing I can think of why they present. He's not haggard. He doesn't look worried. It just looks as if he's on a glamping trip with his good buddy.
Yeah, I mean, he looks the same as he did the first day they got there. And they could have made his hair greasy or something.
Something. It's
even
annoying.
if it's not longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's going to this, making side trips to the salon to have everything, trimmed up and, no, it's annoying. And I've been loving Roger, liking Roger.
Yeah.
This season, but it's
No,
not his
that
fault.
piece is I get the
Right.
feeling that they filmed all their parts kind of condensed.
In one block.
Yeah, in one block. That's what it looked like. Well, let's go to things you noticed. Carmen.
Well, yeah, I posted this on X a couple of days ago, but the title card, it shows a man with dark hair and a young girl with red hair, long red hair, standing in front of a painting. That painting is very famous. It's Molly Pitcher and the Battle of Monmouth, and Jamie's in it. There was, in the original painting, there's a shirtless guy standing next to the cannon, with Molly Pitcher, and he's replaced by General Fraser. So Jamie's in it. And then you really had to look for Claire, but she's over to the lower left as you're looking at the painting with her white headband on, and she's leaning over a patient, caring for them. And I thought that was very clever to do that. It was brilliant. I don't know whose idea it was, but it was wonderful. And I've seen a little bit of chatter about it, but there are some people who think that might have been Bree and Frank being represented as they're standing there looking at that painting. But it had so many Easter eggs in it that it was just pretty cool.
Yeah, I
Man
thought
and
it
That's
was-
what I
Willow.
thought.
I thought it was Brie and Frank looking at the
Mhm.
painting.
Yeah, that's what a number of people have commented on that. I've seen the
Gotcha.
chatter. I think it's probably what they meant to
Yeah.
do. So I thought that was a very, very cool title card. One of the coolest ones I've seen, actually. It was brilliant to put in the two characters in that painting.
I didn't notice Claire until I saw you pointed that out on X.
Well, you
Um,
had to look. The reason I saw her is because I thought, well, they put Jamie in there. She's got to be there somewhere. So I was looking for her, and then I saw her white band headband.
did- I noticed that there was a difference in body fat percentage between the majority of people in that painting and Jamie and Claire.
You couldn't
Well
see the
said.
rest of her body. Yeah.
No. Well, just they had jaw lines for one thing. I don't know if that's just how they painted people back then, but everyone's very soft looking and very,
Oh,
like
Well-
the way people look in historic paintings.
sharp. But I thought they did a pretty good job of intercalating those two images into it. They look like they were part of they look the same. They kind of were a bit fuzzy as you mentioned. So I thought it was well done.
So I noticed a few things. I noticed how much Roger and Buck look alike. They look absolutely like. Then I noticed that William looks like Brian. There was a scene where they
Oh,
showed
wow.
William's face and they showed Brian soon after, and they look alike. They have this very similar features.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed how everybody has really white teeth. I'm like, I don't know who the dentist was back then, but Claire got to them with the scurvy. Must be having them eating
Doing their twigs and
The
eating.
twigs.
and they're little, yeah, really. So everyone, I mean, the faces are dirty. They got blood all over them, but their teeth look perfect. The other thing I noticed that nobody dropped when the shooting started in the church.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Outside the church there.
outside the church, generally when shots are fired, the first thing everyone does is drop. If you're not shooting yourself, you immediately drop. I mean, you seek cover.
Yeah.
As-
And
point.
she was
as-
just like
as we
standing
say in
there,
Ja- As we say in Jamaica, everybody get flat.
and I was like, well, no wonder she got shot. She's just standing there looking at Jamie. I'm like, you got people shooting both directions and you're just standing there. But anyway, so that's what I noticed.
Jamie distracted her by calling her name.
But that was after she was shot, I thought.
No, he said Sassenach, and she looks over and then she gets shot.
So she was preparing to get flat, and Jamie distracted her.
Yeah, Jamie. When Jamie's talking about his mom's hair and he says that that was still alive, that was still her. I
Mhm.
mean, I was just thinking about the irony that hair is kind of dead, but it makes sense that, it doesn't change. It's not something that changes immediately with death like the rest of the body does.
Mhm.
And I was just thinking about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that Black Brian Fraser doesn't have black hair. I don't know why they would
I
make
know
him.
his hair was reddish, and I was like,
Yeah,
"What?"
like his
Red.
name is Black Brian and he has red hair. And they didn't de-age him very well.
Mm.
Oh, just some little stupid stuff that I noticed. You know, Jamie mounts his horse and is riding off, and he's sitting on the tails of his coat. You
Oh.
know, it just looks very weird. You know, that he's general and his coat is bunched up underneath him. I thought, well, Jamie, come on, you're a general. You know, you sit yourself properly on your horse. You don't sit on the tails of your coat. I know you're only going to be riding for a few seconds, but you know, play it out. I noticed that that box, that box that Claire took out with this scrolly thing. Have we seen that before? Where did she get that? We've seen it before?
Yes, we have. I don't know
Okay.
where.
It reminded me of Master Raymond for some reason.
Where did she get that? Do you?
I
Where
think
did she
Lord,
get that?
well, in the book, Lord John gives her a new medicine kit because hers just got destroyed in the fire on the ridge.
Who gave
Her
her?
medicine box got that Jamie gave them
Yeah, I know.
for
Who
her
gave it to her?
anniversary. Lord John gives her a new one in the book.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember seeing
How she
him.
got this one? I don't remember seeing it before. I don't remember how she got it.
Maybe
And it
it'll
was
be
just
in
so
the
noticeable.
cuts.
It
Probably.
was just so. It was
It
so
was in that
noticeable.
box. It was in that box with the dress.
Well, was that the extra box? Was it big enough to be that?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I
it
don't
was
think
So
it
I'm
was big
looking at
enough.
it, and I'm
was
saying
already-
I would have noticed that if it had been in a previous episode. But
It was in
it
the.
was
It
just
was in
so
the episode
beautiful, and it
where
stood
she
out.
looks. She looks for the laudanum. It was in that episode.
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't that box. It was a whole thing with drawers, and no, it was a big thing. I
I thought it
noticed,
was that one.
but I don't think it was that.
Okay.
I noticed that William, the makeup for William when they rescued him was very good. He looked haggard and like he had been through the wars with his cracked lips and everything. I noticed that because usually everybody's looking so nice and annoyingly nice, but but you know they did a good job with making him look as if he had been through something.
Yes, agreed.
I noticed that.
So a couple of them that I have is I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition in the two scenes. The scene where Claire cuts into the man's chest because he has a sucking chest wound in order to save his life. And then next we see Ian stabbing a man cutting through a man's chest in order to take his life. And I thought that was an interesting play on those two situations. Another thing that I noticed is when Roger and Buck come riding up to Lollybrock, isn't Brian wearing the same outfit that Jamie was wearing in episode 102 when he tells Claire about Black Jack Randall coming and he was in the fields and he hears Jenny screaming because she's being assaulted by Black Jack.
He is, and he's doing the same thing Jamie was doing.
Yeah, they had the same pitchfork, and I don't think Jamie had a hay wagon in that one, but he had a hay wagon later in when they were back at Lollybrock, and
I think
the
he
watch
did have a hay
comes.
wagon.
He had a hay wagon.
He had a hay wagon in that one. He
In
was
that one
in
too.
both
Yeah.
of them.
being yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, then that hay wagon was also reappeared, and I thought that was pretty cool. Same kilt, same belt, same pitchfork.
Yep.
Hay. It was really cool. I never saw. Have you ever used sealing wax before?
See what?
Sealing wax.
Ceiling
have.
wax?
Wax.
On the
Yes.
Sealing
ceiling
wax.
wax
No,
or
when they
ceiling?
burn the seal, yeah, they seal the letters.
SEALING, like you
Yeah,
seal
oh,
a letter with.
Yes.
I've never seen it flow so much and so quickly as Roger was able to do. If you've ever used it, it just drips a little bit at a time and you can barely get your stamp in it before, you've got a big enough puddle before it starts to harden. I don't know how they did that, but
What?
that,
Yeah.
and then the last thing I noticed is that Lord John has a new eye patch. It has a rivet on it. It's leather now, and this eye, it's leather now, and it was a cloth one that Denny made him. So he's got a new, very fancy eye patch now.
Yeah.
He
Wonderful. Well
looked
done.
amazing in this episode.
He really
Oh, yeah.
did.
Like he was no more vampire. He was hot, Lord John,
was.
I'm
in
telling
this
you.
episode.
I
Yeah,
He looked
agree. I
good to
noticed that
me.
too.
yeah.
I noticed that they aged Claire very well. Especially when you look at the scenes where some of it's natural, obviously, because she's older than she was when the first scenes were done back in episode 1, season 1, episode 1. But even with that, she's very young looking in real life. So the fact that she actually looks her age in the show, actually both she and Jamie, they aged them quite well. The makeup, whatever they've done to age them. The other thing I also noticed when they're at the church is that they're fighting the war, but clearly they still believe in slavery because all the people doing manual labor were Black, the men around the church who are carrying the water, who are carrying buckets, who are carrying, you know, I noticed that.
A lot of the people were slave owners.
Oh, I know. George Washington was.
Yes.
Yeah.
I noticed that in the very cold Hessian scenes, young Ian's eyes looked blue. Did you guys notice that? Almost looked like he had blue contacts on. And I felt like when he was like, those were the instructions I've been given, he was a little bit like sassy and and
Trying not to lie.
I don't know. It just felt a little bit of presentism that, you know, yeah, he was a little sassy in that one. Did you guys notice that the flag that they showed in a transition, which by the way, I thought the transitions were amazing in this episode. Was that Jamie and Claire's flag that
Wasn't
George
no, because
Washington?
theirs was a circle and this one had, it almost looked like a semicircle.
Square. Kind of.
Okay.
It wasn't the Betsy Ross flag. I don't know what flag that was.
Okay. Well, I noticed that it was frayed. So it had been blowing for a long time, or they made it look like that. And I'm glad you guys noticed the details of the flag. I did not. Again, another of the camera shots that I noticed was Buck and Roger in the doorway. Did you guys see that scene when they take it from, it's in Lollybrook and they take it from a distance and they're framed in the doorway with natural light coming in behind them. It's another beautifully set scene. Roger has clean fingernails. I want to know, did Esmeralda go or did she stay?
Well, she goes in the book.
I
So
know.
I was interested to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, but they didn't really have her in frame. So we don't know. Mandy doesn't have her, but we don't know.
With you, Antoinette. Like, who the heck is Elton?
it just clicked. That is a damn doll.
Thinks
Is
of
it-
the
is
Hunchback of Notre Dame. or
Esmeralda a
something.
donkey? What? Wait, what?
Antoinette, in all transparency, when I was going through, because I got prepared for this yesterday, and I was going through my notes today, and I was like, who the hell is Esmeralda?
I'm sitting here thinking now.
It's the doll with the orange hair.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Her baby.
and she's saying you can't take her with you, but in the book, that's one of the reasons Jamie and Claire recognize that it's them is she has Esmeralda, and of course there's no dye that color in the 1700s. So it'll be interesting to see if Esmeralda made it through the stones
Gemstone.
Right, Carmen, you already mentioned I noticed they left Ian to walk. He's like, well, you must be, anxious to get back to your bride, so we'll take the horses so you can
That
walk.
was a little odd.
Well,
You're
I
in
know,
your way.
It's almost like did you see William's face when he said that? It was like insult to injury. And maybe that was Lord John's way of being like, he will
but
he'll
maybe
be back for days.
but maybe Ian had his horse in the bushes, his Indian pony in the bushes.
There's only 2 horses that they have for this.
It looked, yeah.
I
Maybe there was
noticed
a
that
horse shortage.
I noticed that Rachel's apron was pinned on instead of being like having something that went around the neck.
Well, and
What's-
Denzel's apron and also Lecky's was like it was buttoned at the top
Oh.
right here. Did you see that?
I didn't notice that. I just noticed her pins, but that the around the neck must not have been a thing.
That was not uncommon for nurses' uniforms.
Pinned
Uh-huh.
on
Yeah.
things. Okay.
Without the back
Mhm.
tied.
And I'll just say in the scenes from the upcoming finale, I don't know if you guys noticed that William asks Lord John Grey to help him in what he's gonna do instead of Jamie. And I, for one, was like, what? But I looked at the scenes, there's a window that gets broken and I slowed it down and that's Jamie. So anyway, we'll see what
Well, I
happens.
remember in the book, he does ask Lord
He
John.
does
and
ask
John
him.
said, no, I can't do
Yeah.
anything more.
Right, so maybe that's what's gonna happen. Medical and anatomical, go for it, Kathy.
Okay. So there are a couple things. First of all, I just like to say that I like the way that Denzel, it is Denzel, right, Hunter?
Yes.
I keep on saying Denzel Washington.
That works too.
How he shut them down with the Edinburgh, about the University of Edinburgh, which is still a very good medical school.
Wonderful school.
Even now, it's well known for being one of the best medical schools. And so they did get that line in there about how he's related to the Queen's doctors and all that stuff. So
What was that word?
I don't know. It means physician to the Queen, who is Queen Charlotte. I can't pronounce it.
I think it means midwife.
But but his medical pedigree was they got it in there. The other was that mistake they made is that they referred to Claire's surgeon. He said, "You're a surgeon," and then called her doctor. Even now in England, they don't call surgeons doctor. They're Mr.
They weren't in England though.
It's non-surgical physicians are called doctor, and surgeons are actually not called doctor.
Mister, that's correct.
What are they called?
Mr.
Mr. and Mrs. Mainly because it used to be that surgeons were really just butchers.
Barbers. They were barbers
and butchers, and so they never were called doctor. They still aren't.
What?
They were barber surgeons. They started out as barbers.
So so in England now, even though they're truly surgeons and they do surgical procedures,
they do not call them doctor, Courtney.
They are not called doctor.
Right.
You're saying that they started out as barbers, as in hair cutters?
No, like way back before, like when
This is a historical.
Yes, I know,
situation.
but that's
They were barber surgeons, so they not only did the shaving and so forth and hair cutting, but they also did certain surgical procedures on people, and they were called barber surgeons.
Yeah, and then
that's
butchers
why they
were the
were
ones who did the amputations.
right.
Oh my God! Can you
They're
imagine?
the only ones with sharp enough knives to chop them off.
Your
Ew.
salon, your hairstylist, like just doing a little surgery.
On the side.
On the side.
No, but the
You know where
but
the barber
butcher, I
pole
see. I
came
read. I
from?
always thought it was butchers.
No,
I
The
didn't
barber pole where you see the red stripe classically around a white pole, that was a red rag that they wrapped around their white poles to tell people that they do surgery. They're a barber surgeons. So they were
Like Sweeney
barbers, but they
Todd.
also did surgery. That's the history of that barber pole.
Yikes.
Yeah. So now even in England, they don't. In the United States and Canada, they do call surgeons doctor, but in England
Yes.
they do not.
Oh, they would have a fit if you.
Yeah. So that was
Yes.
unrealistic that he would have called her doctor.
Well, no, this was the United States. I don't know that. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
no,
when
but that
practice
wasn't. But
began
he
to-
was he was. I guess he was educated in Philadelphia, so maybe. But even
Mhm.
still, they're still British. I mean, essentially, until they still weren't.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know historically when that stopped or if it was carried over here in the United States. I don't know what the history of that is.
Yeah.
So it's
But
possible
anyway,
that
so I
it
thought that
wasn't.
was kind of weird.
Yeah,
Um.
that's true. She's right
Yeah.
about.
The conversation that Claire was having about the emptiness and the void and having to ignore it when you're a physician, there is a certain level of compartmentalization that happens in order to function as a physician. You cannot, I mean, you can still have emotions, you can still have a certain, but there is a certain detachment that happens.
Mhm.
And I would imagine for someone in her position, for surgeons even more so than other physicians, there is something very psychologically shifting when you open someone up and you see their internal organs. I mean, it changes who you are. And
Wow.
so if you do that on a regular basis, it's not a natural thing. We're not supposed to have our skin cut. We're not supposed to be able to look inside people. So it just alters your psyche
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah, it's similar. Well, I mean, it's somewhat similar to watching an autopsy because
Well, yeah.
I've had to watch a couple, and yeah, you're right. You do have to, I suppose, compartmentalize, just put that in a different part of your brain to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of
Although I
course,
can say, having dissected cadavers as
you.
well as having done surgery, putting your hand inside a warm body,
It's different.
it's very different.
Yes,
It's just
you're right. It is
yeah.
different.
I think there's a reason also that cardiothoracic surgeons are considered the jerkiest in medicine. And I think it's partly because the heart is so sacred that dealing with that organ and watching it beat in your hand is just not natural. And I think that either the personality shift that happens or the type of personality it takes in order to be able to do that is so yeah, they're not known for being the nicest of doctors.
No, they have to have a big ego. You think of cutting into another living person, and
Yeah,
that the law
God
gives you the
complex.
right to do that. You
Mhm.
have the license to do that by law. And that takes a real ego to be able to, have the confidence to do that to another person, especially when you're in the chest.
Yep. In fact, it's very difficult to cut skin. It is hard. It's just a hard psychological shift to cut into skin.
It's totally
Yeah.
different, but it makes me think I have two brothers who were fighter pilots,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of compartmentalization that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother was telling a story recently about how they cut the budget so they couldn't practice night landings anymore, which is like on carriers, which is like the most dangerous thing that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And he said once I started doing it again, I was like, I didn't feel anything. I wasn't scared. I thought this is bad. Anyway, they changed that back, but it's some kind of a suspending your
You have
humanness
to, in order, like
almost.
things that would scare you, in order not to be scared or not, you have to, and you have to kind of suppresses your adrenaline in the process.
Yeah.
I agree.
And the other part of it was her decisiveness. The way when she went out with Rachel and she started triaging patients, this person goes here, this person goes there, just very decisive, very whatever. And I thought that was very realistic, and I thought it was
Well done.
but it wasn't their usual, you know, bull in a china shop, Claire. It was just simply her being a good physician. And so I like that.
And book Claire.
Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing I noticed was William, poor William, he's just chronically dehydrated. His lips are always cracking.
Really? Usually?
And it was very, very obvious, especially because they show his lips cracking and then they show Lord John Gray's, who are like this, look like he just had like lip gloss on or something.
But remember, he had this gag in his mouth. That's what I was saying. The makeup
But it's
people did
all
a good
but I've
job.
noticed it before. He's
Oh,
always
really?
always
Okay, I
but
have to
then it
look
was
back.
worse. But he always has these like chronically dehydrated.
That is a detraction from his Adonis like self. Look, I'm
Well,
already
but I just
like,
noticed that he just is dehydrated.
I wanted to make a comment on my side that Dr. Lecky's condescension of Claire is absolutely accurate. It was
Oh,
good. It
absolutely.
wasn't until the 1800s before a single woman was admitted to a medical institution in the United States. So it was many decades in the future before that even happened. So his condescension of her being in his surgical area or acting like she knew what she was doing was just unacceptable to him, but it was accurate, even though it's annoying.
Okay, let me just tell you a story. It's accurate now.
Oh, well,
First
I'm
of all,
sure it still happens.
women often get mistaken. Like if we walk into a room with a male medical student, you get ignored. And it's always people, family members start talking to the male student, and no matter how often they say, I'm not the doctor she is, they still. The other is I was kicked out of the they tried to kick me out of the surgeon lounge, the doctor's lounge. I was on my surgical rotation. A physician. I was already graduated from med school, so I was a physician. I was in training, but I was still a physician. So I was sitting in the doctor's lounge, and there are two male surgeons sitting in there, and they said, your room is next door. And I'm like, what room? No, I said, this isn't the doctor's lounge. They said the nurses lounge is next door. And I said, well, that's where the nurses need to stay then. And I sat down and I started watching television, and they were like, no, we're asking you to leave. And I'm like, well, if it's not, I said, so what, all doctors are leaving? And then they realized the mistake they were making, and they shut up.
I bet they
good for
did.
you.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I was the only. Well, I think part of it was that I was
What
a
year
woman.
was
Part of
that,
it was
Catherine?
because I was black. I was the only. Well, we were the only residents in that hospital. I was the only black resident in the residency. So they were like, if you were a resident, we would have known who you are. But I guess they didn't. Who I was. One of them got a little snippy, and so they were like, "Well, what's your name? We're going to talk to your program director." And I said, you can very well talk to my program director, but as long as I know your name, so I know not to refer any patients to you once I graduate.
Mm.
And they both were like, I said, because I'm family medicine, and guess who your resource, your
Who
referral
you're
source,
counting on.
your referral source are family medicine
Yeah.
physicians. And I said, so I want to know your name so I know not to refer any of my patients to you.
Oh.
Good for
And
you.
Yeah.
yeah,
And what
but
they say
I still
then?
heard about it. My residency director was a woman who was like, basically she was like, yeah, I got a report saying that you were, she was like, basically high five.
Yeah. What year was this?
This was 1998. No, 1999, because I was about to finish. So I was, yeah.
That is not that long ago.
Oh, I mean, I hear it all, even from my surgeon friends now. It happens.
I went through the first 2 years of medical school with the medical students. I took all of their courses with them. And I just didn't finish the last 2 years. I did my thesis instead. But there were only 2 women physicians in that class of 100 students, 2 women. All the rest were males. Now it's over 50% women in our medical school. So it's getting
across
better.
the country, actually, 51%.
Yeah, I think it's pretty representative. But I do know that women are still working with people who've been in the system for decades, and they still carry their old prejudices with them about women and whether or not they belong in this setting or not. So yeah, I was glad that they didn't pull any punches on this, and they made it very obvious to the audiences. This is what she deals with every single time she goes in and tries to use her skills when there's these other people present.
They were actually pretty good about showing it from modern day, like the 60s when she started. I guess that's how she and Abernathy became friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because remember when she went into the anatomy class, they all were giving her dirty looks and didn't want to sit by her. And he was the only one that, they befriended each other because neither one of them had the support group they needed.
So basically, in something years, 200 years, nothing changed. So, but anyway.
Yeah.
So I wanted to explain something. I don't remember whether we've said anything about this before in the past, but Claire says to Rachel, our golden hour may be a golden 15 minutes. The golden hour is sort of a folklore, not exactly folklore, but medical lore that you have in cases of trauma. You generally have an hour to decide what you're going to do with the patient, sort of an hour's leeway. That's only in general because that's really not exact. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but when Claire gets the man with the sucking chest wound, he's been burned on his right side and his flesh is showing, and she makes a vertical cut in order to put that little metal tube in. You wouldn't cut vertically, you would cut horizontally, because the openings between the rib, well, they're not perfectly horizontal, but they're more horizontal. They're not vertical. She's going to hit ribs if she cuts vertical. So they should have had her go the other direction in the placement of her knife.
I missed that.
So that man had a sucking chest wound, and that's a general term for a wound in which a person has been usually either gunshot or stabbed or something, but the result of it is that a hole is made through the chest so that air can get into the cavity around the lung. And when that happens, it causes the lung not to be able to fill with air, and it collapses. So the person suffocates to death, basically. They don't get enough oxygen. So what she did was she put a tube in there and pushed it into what was presumably the cavity around the lung, and out pops this little tissue, blood clot, whatever it was, that was in there, and that helped to relieve the pressure and enable him to fill his lungs with air. If you remember, Diana described this really, really well in Echo in the Bone, when Captain Stebbing got stabbed by Jamie, and he has a sucking chest wound, and she uses a quill and drives the quill in with a wine bottle, I think it was, and pops it into the cavity. It's called the pleural cavity that surrounds the lung. And then that let the air out of that. And then she put a flap of cloth over it, 3 sides glued down, so that when it could lift up or let down, depending upon whether he was pulling air into his lungs or letting air out. And so that's what this man has. They didn't have enough time to really explain it to the audience, but that's what she was doing. She was letting air out of this cavity so that lung could now fill with its own air. So without knowing the anatomy, it's kind of hard to understand, but each lung is surrounded with a very thin layer, a potential space. And normally that is insignificant as the lung fills with air and expands, or lets air out and then it deflates to some degree. And if you fill that space with outside air, the pressure exceeds what the lung is able to bring air in against. So that's what you have to stop. You have to let that air in the space out so that now the lung itself can fill with air as the person tries to breathe in. That's hard to explain without a drawing or an illustration, but that's basically what she was doing there.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it's the wound that lets the air in.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Why isn't the air going out of the wound? Like what, how does another hole make the air go out?
Well,
Was it that the wound or it's just the lung collapsed from concussion?
she didn't explain, but I assumed that the wound was part of it because of what came out of the tube, that there was
But
tissue
if there was
bits and
so
fluid.
the reason I didn't get it because if there had been a wound, all she would have had to do was create a flap.
Yeah, she could find it.
Because there was already a hole into that area.
So
And it was
yeah,
just
so my thing is
controlling the
if she made
airflow,
another
right?
hole, it would have just kept the pressure difference would never have happened. So I just assumed it was from a concussive injury
It
that
could
caused
have
the
been
lung to collapse. And
from
she
a
stuck a
cannon
tube in to
blast,
open it.
Well, that's
'cause-
what Lecky said, right? He said he was just close by something that
well, he thought he thought he thought he had just been traumatized by a cannon blast and that it had bothered his ears. But she said, no, he has a sucking chest wound. Now, she didn't say how she made the diagnosis. I'm assuming that she did it properly. I think sometimes that they can hear the air
Yeah.
through the hole.
It is such a complex process
It
in
is.
just
I
diagnosing
agree.
it and fixing it that I honestly don't have enough confidence in my knowledge in that area to say definitively what you I do know the hole would reinflate the lung, and then I know that there's a flap, like a valve, you create a valve, but I just didn't see that happen in that scene.
It didn't happen in the scene.
Okay.
It didn't show what she was going to do to finish it. It also did not show um, how she made the diagnosis. That would have helped.
She put her ear to his chest, so maybe she couldn't hear air going in and out.
Maybe. Maybe it was filmed and they
And then it
cut it
got cut
short
out
because
because they didn't expect
they didn't think
doctors to sit here just
we would
figuring
be
out.
watching it.
they should know by now. Come on.
It's complicated enough. I'm kind of surprised that this is the kind of wound that they would choose to have her do because it's not simple for the audience to understand. It's not simple to explain it. I've been talking about it for 10 minutes and I still don't
We're
think
still
it's
not
clear. You're
clear.
still not satisfied. So I think I might not have chosen this if I were the writer, but then most people wouldn't pay any attention to it. So it would be fine under that circumstances. But anyway, just to reiterate, she was releasing fluid or clot or whatever it was that little blurb was supposed to represent that was caught in this pleural space and was preventing the lung from filling. So by releasing that, it could now fill. She has to do something about the hole that she made, but we didn't see what she's going to do. She also should do something about the hole that was there in the first place that caused it, if there was a hole. Where she gets shot it should be the liver that it hit, because that was high enough up that it would be in the vicinity of the liver. The color of the blood was the right color for a liver shot, and the amount of blood, because the liver is a very bloody organ, the amount of blood that she bled would also be accurate. And the blood was very dark. Did you notice how dark it was? It wasn't bright red, like when Ian looks at his hand after he kills the officer. That's bright red arterial blood. This is venous blood. So it was very dark. And all of that is accurate for a liver injury. But even now today, what I've read is that 40 to 60% of gunshot wounds to the liver result in death. It is a really dangerous kind of injury to have. So let's hope that Denny's a very good surgeon.
Couldn't figure out how she would kept losing consciousness coming back. Then she could give instructions.
That part was
My
in the
liver.
script.
But even with the liver, how would he have stopped it? I mean, I guess
the bleeding,
clamp off the artery that was injured.
Well, it was pretty close to the lower part of the right lobe, and so it would. There's not any major vessels there. There's still, a bazillion little vessels, but there's not any major vessels down there.
But it was pooling. They showed it pooling on the bed.
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to bleed a lot.
Well, I know it's going to bleed. I just thought it just seemed a little, it seemed like the amount of blood loss would have rendered her. I mean, they got the makeup right for the blood loss, that's for sure. But I just thought that the consciousness part was inconsistent with the amount of blood that she lost and the way she looked. She looked like she had lost a significant, like she was pale.
Yeah.
And that was very real, like an Antoinette said, was very realistic.
It is pretty astonishing how much blood you can lose though and not die.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot more than what you think I think it is, if I remember right, several pints. I don't remember how many it is, but I've looked at it before and I just don't remember it right now, but it's a lot more than what I ever thought.
You'd expect.
I should say that a person could live and still, could lose and still live. But I agree, she would lose consciousness and she probably wouldn't be popping up and giving medical advice to Denny. However, that is what she does in the book. So
she does tell him about the damn cheese. The stinky cheese.
I think it is really interesting that Denny and Rachel mask up, but Jamie doesn't. So
we don't want to see Jamie in a mask.
No, I agree.
That was the other thing I thought was very interesting in that scene, in that the influence she's had on Denzel, because he would not have worn a mask.
No.
Before.
Yeah.
No. And the fact that he wasn't wearing a mask at all before, and he only put on a mask for Claire.
And he was cleaning his instruments too. His instruments were all cleaned and sterilized, and that would have been her influence for him, because he wouldn't have been trained that way.
No.
They didn't do those kinds of surgeries in those days. They did amputations and so forth, but they stayed out of the body cavities pretty much. The exception might be hemorrhoids, urinary bladder, or something like that, but they stayed out of the cavities.
Yeah,
pretty much. So that's.
Carmen, do you happen to know historically what happened with Hunter? Like, what did he do?
Yeah,
is be interesting to see if his influence in surgery was. I just haven't looked it up, but
there was the two brothers, John and William, John Hunter and William Hunter, and it was William who was the physician to Queen Charlotte. John was an anatomist. William was a physician and an anatomist, and they started the Hunterian Museum at the University of Edinburgh. That was one of the first public museums in the history of the world, and they started it. And I've been there a couple of times. Their specimens are unbelievable that they have in there. You should go. If you get to go to the University of Glasgow, go in and look at the Hunterian Museum, because it's still there, and his preservations are in the cases. You can look at what he was looking at and what he saw as both of them.
University of Glasgow or Edinburgh?
Glasgow.
Okay.
University of Glasgow is where the Hunterian Museum is. Now there's another one in London. If I remember right, so there's a couple of Hunterian museums that the brothers started, and
So what do they have, like things they've extracted and
yes, and a lot of unusual things, conjoined twins of certain kinds,
like a Master Raymond type?
yeah, that kind of thing, the oddities and unusual things that people lived with. There's also in Edinburgh, there is a anatomical museum that is also very worth going to visit if you ever get a chance to see it. My eyes were just like, I couldn't believe what I saw there. It's quite astonishing. But yeah, they were, so William was the physician to Queen Charlotte, her gynecologist and I guess obstetrician, and general caregiver. And then they both were just very excellent anatomists, very well considered in the anatomical circles. So they very knowledgeable, and they were good teachers. Okay, that's it for me for
Thank you.
medical and anatomical.
Did we have any lawyerly today?
Just that, you know, Jamie could have been shot or hung summarily because they were at war, so martial law was in place. And
But
so
wasn't Lee already discharged from his
I'm sorry,
position?
what? Because he resigned. You can't
Yeah.
resign in the middle
No,
of
no,
a
no.
war.
Lee was removed by Washington already. That's
Yeah,
what I
Lee
thought.
was removed by Lee was removed,
So he
relieved
couldn't
of his
order
command
Jamie to do
on the
anything
field.
anyway.
No, he could, because he was relieved of his command on the field, but he wasn't stripped of his position as Brigadier General.
Ah, okay.
Washington took over on the field of battle, but he was still a
He was
general.
still okay. So
And
he was still his commanding officer.
Still his commanding officer. And so Jamie could not, I mean, well, the act of resigning like that was completely illegal. You can't just resign in the middle of battle, you know. So he could have been hung or shot summarily without trial. So, and I saw a comment on not X, because I'm not on that hellscape anymore, that it was so weird that when Jamie and Claire were talking about when he said he has 300 men, and he said that he wouldn't put their lives in jeopardy for the sake of William. But when it comes to Claire, he is going to damn everything, you know. He is going to resign and risk court-martial and hanging because it's Claire. Doesn't matter if and leave his 300 men that he was so worried about, you know, those souls that he had control or command over, and that he wouldn't jeopardize for William. But Claire is shot, to hell with them. I'm gone. Yeah. I'm out.
BTS. Carmen, did you have anything?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Molly Pitcher's real name was Molly Hayes, apparently. She was called Molly Pitcher because at the first part of the battle, she was carrying water to the men, and that's where I guess, where they got the name Pitcher for her. However, she loaded and fired her husband's weapon. I don't know whether or not he was shot at the time or disabled, but she was firing and participating in the fighting herself. And of course, as very often happens with the historians, they think she was a composite of several women because they can't imagine, I guess, one woman being courageous enough to participate in the battle, even though historically there's been many, many examples of it. Anyway, she ended up, Washington made her a sergeant and in the military, and she got a pension of her very own. And during the battle, it was so fierce that her petticoat, the lower part of her petticoat, got blown away by a shell that came close to, I guess, a cannon shell that came close enough to her that it blew her petticoat away. At least that's what the the historical record says. So I thought she was a very interesting character and deserved a little spot of light there in with that painting.
Yeah. And good on Washington.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment about Pocock because I think you said that there were some people who commented that that was a word that meant whore or a loose woman or something like that. At least that's what I remembered last time. Is that correct?
I think it was I had said that Jamie said that was a gimmick name for whores. Fanny Pocock.
Yeah.
And
And-
Antoinette had said that it was not a surname for someone who would know Latin or be of any kind of as well spoken as Jane is.
Mhm.
Well, I looked it up, and Pocock is a shortened version of peacock, the peacock animal, and it is usually meant to mean a proud and haughty person. But this family has their own coat of arms and family crest. So it isn't just a trash name, at least the Pocock part. I understand the way Fanny is used in Europe, and especially England, compared to how we use it as a nickname. But I just wanted to comment on what I'd learned about the peacock part,
Okay.
the Pocock part of peacock.
That's interesting.
How many cocks does a peacock cock? It's a peacock pocock cock.
Okay.
Careful.
No more beer for you.
Oh, the majority of a beer.
You're
That's
back.
crazy. My red face. Okay, so BTS, what I went down a couple of rabbit holes, and one was with lighting. Remember in the book when Jamie sees Claire in the future, and he says, I knew you were in the future because of the light. It wasn't sunlight, it wasn't candlelight, it was something different, and you had told me about electric light. So this goes back to my comment about how a lot of the other episodes were shot in electric light. And I think part of why this episode and then the earlier seasons were so realistic was because they used candlelight. And so I just looked up some of the timing, and so electric light was invented in 1890 by Thomas Edison, as we know, but it was not commonly used until 1925.
Oh.
And before that, gas lamps were used, and they were invented in 1792 by a Scottish guy named William Murdoch, who installed pipes to deliver coal gas to lamps in his house. And then it went from there. A different guy patented it. So that still goes on. In 1816, Baltimore became the first city to use gas lamps, and those were widely used in homes until the 1880s and replaced by electric lights in the 1920s. So electric light really is a more modern thing. And I was thinking, well, maybe they can use gas lamps for filming, so it's more realistic. The other little rabbit hole I went down was it's Flory May Wilkinson. She has just captivated me, as I know she has you guys, and she is from Newcastle, I believe. She is a little firecracker. She actually reminds me of my daughter. She will be 14 in a couple of months, so she's super young. And
Probably 12 when they filmed that, then. Impressive.
But she loves what she does, and she's going for it. And she has two little twin brothers and then an older brother and sister, and she wrote about this scene with William. She basically said, I have siblings, so I could imagine what that would be like. And that's what she used to, you know, emote in that scene as her inspiration in that scene.
Well, there are these are two things that makes me think that this writer is a book reader. When Jamie recounts Ellen's death and the death of her newborn son, Jamie's brother, that's from the Fiery Cross. And when he says, there may come a day when you and I shall part again, but it will not be today, that also is from the Fiery Cross. And so those are things that caused me to think that this is a book, that this woman has read the books, not just the book that she's writing in, but she's read the series.
Well, and that she's like a book fan, not just a book reader. That she's like metabolized those things and can pull on it. Yeah. I didn't know those were, I thought they were from different books, but how brilliant to pull those things in.
Yeah.
Where they fit, like Antoinette said. So just a few things from our wonderful viewers. Sally says that Charles did watch Sam's traits as Jamie on purpose, although he said he didn't want to make it too obvious. So he tries to subtly put in the Jamie traits, and I think he's pretty successful at that. Claudie pointed out that the Master Raymond's vest that was embroidered by Liz Bolton included Carmen's visual of gout. And I found a pretty good picture of it.
Yep, there he is.
Yeah, so the camera, you can see him. This is in the, I think, the lower left part of the vest, panel of the vest. Yeah. So that was a great catch. Irish 20 said that that she disagreed on a BTS comment. The scene between Claire and William is from the book, chapter 102 of Echo. So this is when the one where we said that they gave the scene of Claire and William in the bedroom. Is that 712? Yeah. Where he's asking, did he love my mother? Was it rape? All that stuff. And we said, that was Jamie's conversation. This person is saying, no, this scene is between Claire and William, is from the book in chapter 102 of Echo. And the conversation with Jamie is 136 of Moby. And it's similar, but not this dialogue. So we shall see. Yeah, we shall see. So thank you, Irish 20. Jude Evans says, I'm not surprised they've dropped the name Fanny, especially for this side of the Atlantic. I mean, that basically means vagina, right?
It doesn't, yeah.
And they think it's so funny that we have something called a fanny pack, that, people are named Fanny. They just think it's hilarious. Two people shared, Francis and Lil. Francis had gout in her 50s, and it was agonizing, and she had 2 bouts, and then it was done. And Lil's husband had gout, even though autocorrect made it ghost. She said the poor man couldn't move his foot and was so swollen. Finally, he took the medicine you said, Catherine, allopurinol.
Allopurinol.
Thank you. And for years, and avoided any more episodes. So that stuff works. Then Adrian told us the German Hessian troops wore blue, actually, because it was the color of the infantry in Hesse, Germany, where they were from. And someone else said the Museum of the American Revolution shows it as the show did Royal Navy blue coats with yellow tan pants.
Okay.
So I don't know where the green came from in the book. Let's see. Helen verifies that Charles is gorgeous. I met Charles at a photo shoot at a convention, and yes, this is to Catherine. He is absolutely beautiful to look at. I couldn't take my eyes off him. But no, my heart was still with Sam. Ruth said that Ruth and Linda got into a really good conversation about. Ruth says, when you mentioned that you hope that Jamie will forgive Lord John Grey, he tells Claire in the books that he forgives Blackjack every day. He prays to be able to forgive him, but that doesn't stop his trauma, nor does it make him forget. Jamie will forgive John because that is who he is, but he will remember, and he said, as he says, will make a fuss about it. Linda pointed out that apparently, and Carmen, you would know this better, in one of the Lord John Grey books, apparently Lord John Grey is teasing Jamie in the stables at Hellwater, in kind of a, I don't know exactly what takes place, but Jamie gets triggered and he smashes the wall next to Lord John Grey, and Lord John realizes in that moment, oh, like either this is really distasteful to him or something has happened. And so yeah, they feel like
in a sexual way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So they feel like because of that Lord John actually knows
How triggering it would be.
how
what he
triggering it
said.
would be for Jamie.
I thought that was intentional. Yeah, I thought that was well known that he did it on purpose to trigger him.
Yeah.
Well,
But you know, a lot of people online, the chatter online was saying, oh, they don't understand why Jamie was so angry.
yeah.
And I want to say,
Well, it depends also if you read, sometimes some of the things are book reader versus show only.
Yeah.
If you only watch
but
the
if
show,
that-
you may
yeah,
get.
but if they watched season 1 and saw what Jamie went through with Blackjack, and if they watched season 3 when All Debts Paid, when he and Lord John were in Lord John's room and Lord John touched him, and you saw the transformation come over his face.
Yeah.
If they were paying attention, they would realize that Jamie
Yes, I agree.
trauma. You know, that is, yeah. So no, they need to pay attention and stop objectifying people and waiting for sex scenes.
Linda also brings up that Lord John Grey, when he says you didn't get used to it, she's adding in some more. It's not just about the change. She's saying now Lord John knows what it's like to be a traitor against his will, which is the only reason Jamie ever made an oath to the king was because he was forced to. And Lord John shares that with him now.
Good point.
Yeah.
To avoid being hanged for treason. And so he had to make the oath to the king, and then he also didn't escape to France from Hellwater because he had given Lord John his word that he wouldn't do that. Then there's the declaration of Arbroath, which they cite as making all those other oaths, null and void. But anyway, the point is more so that Lord John, there's more complexity there, that Lord John actually shares with Jamie now his experience of breaking his oath and having to do these things because his life depended on it, or his family and all this stuff. Yeah, so I thought those were interesting comments.
Very much so.
Okay.
I got from a reader, or she had an orbital fracture, and her surgeon put a metal plate in the floor of hers. Sometimes they've used a bone graft, for instance, or other things, but a metal plate is one of the things that was used. And she said she had a great outcome of it, which I congratulated her about. But that's a little follow-up of
yeah. I love it. I love how everyone shares their stuff and their thoughts. Very, we have very intelligent Outlander fans. Okay, let's go to favorite lines, Carmen.
Well, my favorite of all, I love you, Claire said, and Jamie walks back to her and says, "It will not be today, Sassenach." And I really, really like that that exchange between them. They delivered their lines well, and I liked it being where it was.
That was an excellent scene, also.
Yeah,
I thought
was
particularly Kat for me, that scene.
What Claire, when she said people want to go to heaven, they just don't want to die to get there.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah,
That was my favorite.
this one was
it's a
full
good
of
one.
them.
I don't can't argue with that.
Yeah, but that, I mean, it's like, yeah, when everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. But
Nobody wants to pay the price.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, this is kind of long. I loved this whole thing. I love Rachel. I love that character, and man, it almost makes me want to be a Quaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
She says, I will give the Lord says, I will give you the treasures of darkness. Thee has helped me to see that courage in the face of death is one such treasure. And the world, and then I'm just going to do this part if that's okay. And Claire says, well, I hope Jamie doesn't overextend himself and get killed. And she says, and thee would be stabbed through the heart, but still alive. I'm afraid that Ian would hesitate to do what must be done and be killed because of me. It would be my fault he was gone, and I would be left alone with my principles.
The way
I
she
thought
said it,
that
That was really
beautiful.
really.
It was
she
well written,
nailed that.
well
I mean,
delivered. Oh my gosh.
just the everything about that. She is really good.
What she did with her eyebrows.
I think about now when I see her eyebrows, I think of you. Did anyone notice her Fraser nose this time?
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Antoinette.
When Jamie and Claire are in that first scene, and he's talking about Ellen, and Claire says to him, "Was it her?" Somehow that reached something inside of me. Was it her?
Yeah.
So that was one of my favorite lines.
Armin?
Is it my turn again?
Mm-hmm.
So there were several lines that Buck delivered that I liked a lot. I thought he did a really good job in this episode. But one of them is it right that you know more about a man than he kens about himself? And I thought, wow, what a blow that would be if you were talking to somebody who knew your future, your past, more about it than you did. Wouldn't that be pretty unsettling? Yeah. I just thought it was a great line.
And did we see Roger give him the year of his death?
Yeah.
Or is that what we did?
I didn't remember him doing that, but he spoke as though Roger had given him the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how he told us. I don't think
I don't think.
I mean, are you thinking of Blackjack, Kathy? Claire gives Blackjack.
No, I know that. I remember that one. That was one of the best scenes in the show.
I don't remember him telling Buck anything about his parentage or his
well, I know
life.
he didn't give anything about his parentage. I just thought he did tell him
before this episode. But he's implying that he had told.
Well, because I think it was during the scene where he asked if he ever makes it back. Like when they were already in Scotland, and it was right before he saw his father.
I don't know.
I thought he asked him if he ever made it back.
Oh,
Yeah.
but he's talking about the dad.
No, I'm talking about Buck.
Okay, we'll have to go back and see.
But then
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look. So
Yeah.
after Jamie was talking about his mother, and he says to Claire, to see those years touch you gives me joy.
Yeah.
That one.
I mean, especially in our anti-aging, obsessed looks with youth culture,
Mm.
how lovely would that be to hear? That was a beautiful scene. I liked Lord John to William. He's using you as a political pawn because of who you are, because of who your family is. And he holds his face, you know, and you see
Mhm.
William like, oh,
Can I just say one thing, Carmen? It's almost like you have a director and cinematographer. It's like
What?
camera keeps coming up, and then it goes back.
Oh,
And then
my
it moves, and then it
iPad
goes to the
does that.
side, and then it
Well,
comes
it's because
back.
I moved.
she's much more interesting. She's been directed by Joss for this discussion.
No, the reason of it is because I
Watching
move around a lot. I have trouble sitting still.
But
So when
ours
I
don't do
move,
that.
my
I move a
camera
lot.
keeps, huh? What?
Mine doesn't do that.
camera has some. There's some
Settings.
movement activation in your camera because like like now as you move,
I know, that's what I'm
it
saying. It's
comes
'cause I keep
in and
moving
it's
around.
like
I
you
like
have
it.
Ken Burns. No, it is. She's got Ken Burns
Ken
in her
Burns.
house.
I
She's
like
just
it. I think
bringing
it's
in the
cool.
camera.
I think we should all have
I'm
that.
sorry if it's distracting.
No, I
It's
think
not.
it looks cool. I think it looks really cool. It just makes the rest of us look really boring.
Yeah, I feel like we are from the director of the Battle of Saratoga, and Carmen is from this episode. That's what it looks like.
I think Carmen said it. It will not be today,
Mhm.
especially, it was also poignant. He's saying to her, it will not be today, but we know in light of what happens after, that made it, when I think back on it, that made it so much more gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
And the other one was when William says to Lord John, who the hell am I? Because that's a theme
Yeah.
that has been threaded through identity and who you are and that kind of thing. So I like that. I mean, all of the book
So
books,
many
there were
good
just
lines.
so many. It's hard to. So I'm just picking out the ones that are a little quirky.
So this is an exchange between William and Lord John, and William says he's a traitor, describing Jamie. I would never betray my king or country. And then Lord John says, never is not a word to be trifled with, William. Be careful with it. Things are not always so straightforward. That is so full of nuance and innuendo, in history, that I thought it was a great remark. I don't remember that from the book, but I thought it was really a good exchange between the two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a kind of abyss, is it not? And yet we're not afraid to look at it. Talking about the sky.
Mm.
True.
Jamie
That's-
to Claire.
So this is Lecky. He said, I am a diplomat of the Medical College of Philadelphia. And Claire says, I congratulate you, but you're still wrong.
You're still wrong.
I'm sorry, I loved that. I just thought that was perfect. The other one was between Roger and Buck. And Roger says, Buck said, why didn't you tell me, about my murderous mother and who my father was? And he said, what if you did something that changed the course of time? And then Buck's response as an attorney, he says, then perhaps we should have left your own father to his fate, which I thought was a, spot on response, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. And Roger's face was like, ooh. I liked the first part of that line. You're contradicting me? Yes, you're wrong. And he says all that, you graduated and all that stuff, and you're still wrong, she says.
Yeah,
Um,
I just
and I thought
remember.
it was kind of ironic that
Mhm.
Roger told Buck, you've a good heart.
You what?
There's
Buck,
some
you have a
dark
good
humor.
heart.
He said, you've a good heart, Buck.
Oh,
And I
Buck
was
has
like,
anything but a good
well,
heart.
actually,
there's some dark humor.
Yeah,
Let's see. I think that's it.
I remembered one.
Yeah, go for it.
It's that scene I hate, but with Buck and Roger. When Buck says, "Aren't you all mine?" or something to that
all
effect.
my sons.
Aren't you all? Yeah, I thought that was a great line.
That was a good line. I thought that he had some really good lines in
He had
this
some really good lines.
episode.
I mean, he could have said them in a minute or two.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah, I liked it when he said, like some kind of kamikaze, and he's like, a comma what now?
What?
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. That was the other one. I couldn't figure out what I had written.
I'm a wet now.
You
Yeah.
have to stop drink writing.
And Jamie says, dinna leave me, Claire. This time I will beg. Dinna go from me. And she says,
I won't. Oh, how didn't anybody pick "May the devil eat your soul and salt it well you"?
yeah, that was
You picked it.
crazy. You picked it.
Oh boy, the way
Oh
he
my
delivered it.
God. What
Man,
a line.
that's the maddest I've ever seen Sam.
What a line and what a delivery.
Yeah. I thought he was going to pop a blood vessel.
I was he frightened me.
Yeah.
In that scene, that part.
Okay, let's do standouts, and let's do one and go around so that nobody hogs them all.
Yeah. What time is it? Okay. Well,
We're almost done.
in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're
'Cause
almost
I
done.
gotta go to sleep because I gotta.
Why don't we go the opposite way and I'll be last this time because I've been first for all the others and give other people a chance to, because you know who I'm going to choose and it'll take it away before anybody else has it.
Well, that's part of being first. Get on, girl.
Go on.
All right. Well, Kat and Sam, both, they're,
I can't believe you said them. What a jerk.
see what I mean?
No.
You know, I don't want to undercut Kat because she was fabulous, but I have never seen Jamie roar like he did or his facial expressions that he did. I've never seen those. And you know, you think back about Antoinette mentioned the Black Jack Randall pair of episodes where he had tremendous emotional range, but this was just off the charts. I just thought, man, that's Academy Award level to me.
Well, there's a couple. Well, Fanny always stands out. The actress who plays Fanny.
Flory.
But mainly what was I call it cinematography, but I guess it would be more lighting. But I just felt that it was just it it was like looking at true art. I mean, it was art. I mean, that's just, if you painted it, it would make sense. If you took a photograph of it, it would have made sense. Just looking at it, movement made sense. It was just all so beautifully done, and it was just visually stunning. That's my standout.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
And of all of them that you mentioned, Flory May was on my list too. I am gonna pick then for my next standout will be Izzy, because honestly, that scene between Claire and her, the nuance, the emotion, the way she delivered it, and I mean, I can't imagine having to be a Quaker, and talk in that way. And she does it. She's great. I think she was amazing.
Yeah.
Next one up.
Okay, standouts. I have Francis and a million exclamation points after.
Yeah.
She reminds me so much of Layla Burns. They have that same it factor, that quality that makes you know that this is a gifted actor. And so she was my standout. Sam was out of this world. He just threw down, he pulled all sorts of stuff from the soles of his feet right up and through. You could see it in that scene. I think he was really, really at the very top of his game. I don't think I've ever seen him execute as well as he did in that episode, in the scenes. Well, actually, all of the scenes. And it's weird to say that my standout was one of my standouts was every scene with Jamie and Claire. The first one, the two under the stars, the one where she got shot, and the fact that they were centered just made everything else in the episode top notch. So that was a standout for me.
Okay, Carmi.
Well, Darmaid, is that his name? Is that how you pronounce it?
I think it's
Murdoch?
Dermid, but I'm not sure.
Darmaid?
Dermid.
Dermot?
Dermot. Yeah.
I thought
I
he
know,
was
right.
really good in
Oh,
all
yeah.
of the
Oh.
delivery of his lines. He had quite a bit to say, but he came across as being so human and likable, a likable guy. He said, "I'm not a very nice person, but he is. I like him." He may not feel that way about himself, but I like the delivery of his lines. I'm sorry that Roger comes across without. He doesn't. He doesn't really even say anything to this man who is, his 6 times great grandfather or something like that. So I'm disappointed in Roger's role in these last several episodes in his interaction with Buck. But I just think as Buck that he just really delivered in this. I liked all of his lines and him saying that you are my sons, you are all my sons. I just thought was just thrilling, actually, that he would be able to say that when his own life looks pretty bleak right now.
I think this is the first episode he's been given some real meat.
Yeah.
And
He's got chops. He's got some acting
he
chops.
delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to spend a little bit more time on Kat, because normally Kat is gives the bigger, more performance, and Sam is more restrained. And I felt that it was the opposite in this episode, which makes sense because of the content. But I thought she did a fabulous job. The scenes that stick out to me with her are the goodbye scene to Jamie, where she's like, there's that something that's niggling at me, and her relief when he says it will not be today, and when she says I love you. Like, this is, like you said, Carmen, the most believable their chemistry has been for me in a very long time. And then all of the scenes where she's injured, like where she gets shot, where she's going through that whole thing. The scene with the sucking chest wound was one of my favorite scenes, because the way she played that, the way it was written, and how Claire she was. So I wanted to really call her out also.
I think I mentioned them before in terms of the director.
Yeah.
He didn't get in the way of the story and the writer. Those are my big standouts, aside from, the actors.
I like Joy Phillips as Denzel a lot. I like Izzy too. I'm with you, Courtney. I just think she just is a scene stealer. But Denzel is really, I just think he's an interesting character. And I like the way he plays his character. Both of them, and the way they hopped up on that wagon together, like a brother and sister. I don't know. I just think they work together really well.
I agree. And
This is
I
fabulous.
actually thought like I like them with Jamie and Claire more than Bree and Roger. Like the book ending, having them as the other characters with Jamie and Claire works a lot better for me than Roger and Bree.
Yeah. I feel the same.
Any other comments on standouts? Joey was on my list too, and
Okay.
John Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah. John had a small part, but he's so good.
He's
Yeah,
stuck-
that killing scene,
stuck
it
that
was
landing.
he was great in that. Okay, let's go to our big themes and then we're out of here. Are you still with us, Kathy?
I am right here. I'm
Okay.
just answering an email.
Okay, Carmen, what's your big theme?
My big theme of this is that Jamie's love of Claire surpasses his commitment to God and country.
Yeah, that's
So
for
he
sure.
resigned his commission, so to speak, to his country, and in the house of worship. Of course, that's not where she gets treated in the book, but that's where they are now at Tennant Church. He says, you can't, this is your house, but don't you send your angels here. So he's basically defined both God and country in this episode for his wife, because he loves her more than anything else, even his own life.
That is true. Kathy?
My big theme: men are idiots.
Oh,
And I already
say more.
Explain yourself.
Explain yourself, she said.
Because where there are men, there's war. And that was kind of, Claire's, the whole montage at the beginning was about all the wars and all the death and all the destruction that basically at the hands of men.
Yeah, they're all started by men.
Exactly.
I guess the Falkland War
There you go.
might
That's
be
my
an
thing.
exception, but
It doesn't mean I don't love them. Doesn't mean I don't want to live without them. They're just idiots.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, they
Testosterone
did start the
poisoning
wars.
is what
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is. Now you understood. You're like, okay, I get that.
My big theme is that principles don't always hold up in certain situations in life, and we have to revert to our gut intelligence. And I don't know, we go to our baser self. And I feel like we saw that in this episode many times. Jamie and Claire, like to your point, Carmen, he's a soldier, his duty comes first, all that stuff, all fell away when Claire became mortally wounded. And he just said, this is everything to me, and I don't care about any of that other stuff. We saw it with Lord John Grey and William in the tech, room when William is enumerating all the things he's been taught. And, basically Lord John Grey is, it's like, that's out the window because this is life right now. And, and he enumerates why Jamie's a great guy and why, even though he's a traitor, which now Lord John Grey is a traitor, the basic truth is this is a great guy, he's your dad, and I'm your dad, and we love you, and this is what really matters, even more than your reputation, than your manners, than your all the things that William enumerated, the principles. And I mean, obviously with Rachel and Ian, she spelled it out for us that, like, oh my God, I have my principles, and this is war, and I sent my husband off asking him to uphold my principles, and that's probably going to get him killed. and then I'm going to be alone with my principles. Like, I just thought that was a beautiful, and I loved that we saw Ian be like, I'm not doing this. I'm killing this guy. And and going to his warrior nature and following his gut of like, yeah, no, I can't be like a Quaker right now, or we're all gonna end up dead. Um, and then even Dr. Lecky and Claire, he started out, I'm this and blah, blah, blah. And by the end, he's like, come on in here, do, like you're an amazing surgeon, Dr. Fraser, I think he called her. And, it's war just strips all that shit down. And that happens in life, even when it's not war. And we all have that. We have our, the principles are what help you function in society. And then when the shit hits the fan and life gets real, you go to the gut intelligence, the things that really, the core values, what's really important here. And I think we saw that over and over in this episode.
I think it's a recurring theme that we've been seeing from the beginning, and it's about the inevitability of death. That opening line about, everybody wants to get to heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. Just for me, encapsulated the theme that I took away from this episode. Death and taxes. It's there. It's walking alongside us as we live our lives. It's always there. And it's going to come to everybody. And Jamie is there in his desperation, trying to stave off death from Claire because she means so much to him. But it's inevitable. It will happen. And so it makes it more important how we live our lives, which is one of the reasons why I think that Lord John and William and that whole finding of himself, because when it comes down to it, death is there waiting for us. That's where we're going. We're all going there. Let's figure out how to make the most of the journey and don't get bogged down with the things that aren't important, that are just trappings. Because at the end of that journey, so that's what I took away.
Y'all got all these poignant things about this whole episode. Men are idiots.
That's
That's
good.
pretty poignant.
Yeah, that's poignant. Well, I wanted to say too, I think that also through the life's journey, our ideas of what's important. I mean, we've seen Lord John Grey even go through this transition, and have to drop a lot of stuff. And William saying, well, this is what you've taught me. And that happens a lot to us as parents. And then you're like, well, actually,
yeah.
I rethink my position. I got that line from Carmen, and I use that. I rethink my position, because if you don't rethink your position throughout your life, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And so are everyone who looks up to you and depends on you, because we don't know everything. And even if we think we do, at some points, we usually don't.
Yeah, because life will, as we love to say, life be lifing. So
it's the very qualities that you're proud your children have are the same qualities you wish they didn't have at that moment. My mother's favorite line to us is, one, you let your children practice on you for the rest of the world. And then the other was, you have to let a child be at 4 what you want them to be at 24. You have to let them be the 4-year-old version of what you want them to be at 24. And I was like, oh, it's hard.
It is.
But even at that moment, like, I was watching that exchange between, Lord John Grey and William, I was like, he's probably still very proud of him.
Oh yeah.
Because, you know, just that head, he even said, you remind me so much of Jamie. That headstrongness, that stubbornness, that,
Mhm.
you know, that conviction, the belief, you know, sticking to what you believe.
The
So,
honor piece.
exactly.
That's not just a principle, that's just in the
And then
blood.
being the child, his child who actually learned his lessons that he was taught growing up.
Yeah. And it's just a little confused.
And a lot of the lessons, when he finally calms down and looks back, a lot of the lessons that grounded him that he learned from Jamie, who he thought of as Mac, the groom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Ugh.
I gotta go.
Okay. Love you guys. So glad we all got to
I will
be here tonight.
update.
Courtney, are you organizing this Scotland trip?
So it's gonna be organized by Lisa. I just haven't circled back with her
Oh, I see what
to
you mean.
yeah, to I mean I'll curate it. But it will be through her tour group again, and we'll offer it probably.
What time of year will it be?
It's gonna be, I think she told me it's October of 2025.
Do you know when?
No, I don't.
Yeah, so,
I need to get the specific dates.
yeah, okay.
Since
All right,
you're organizing your vacation around this trip.
No, no, it's not. I have to monitor my time.
Yeah.
I do
As I said,
believe that somebody needs to go to bed.
Kathy or
Yeah,
me?
I'm falling asleep.
She's sagging against the wall.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good
good
night,
night, everyone.
Like,
I see you all
sitting on
She's
my
had a
bed,
big
I was
day.
like, I just like there's a pillow right here. So
If I don't leave, click on this leave meeting. We'll be here another hour.
Okay.
Good night.
okay, go ahead.
Love you all.
Good night. I gotta go to
Everybody
Love
bed
you.
Good
here.
night, ladies. Bye-bye.
Good
Love
night.
to
Oh
see
wait,
you.
so are we doing, you want to do next? Bye, Antoinette. Do you guys
No.
want to do
Next
yeah,
Monday.
we're gonna do the finale next Monday, yeah?
Is it?
Okay.
Oh, I didn't realize there was another episode. I thought that there was a cliffhanger. They
No,
just-
no.
No.
Next
The
Friday
finale is next
is
this
16.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
So you'll be tired for another Tuesday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Love ya.
Love
Love
you
you
too.
too. Bye.
Bye.